Hey guys, it's fairly late and I am sweaty gross on Monday night, but I wanted to do a video this week because we held back Gamer's Guide to Feminism because of the DNC. We did that democratically. I asked the question of people and had a few people look at it and went, okay, who's got it? The ayes had it. The yes, you know, leave it a week, don't let it get lost. But there were a fair number of people that wanted it. So I might release an audio preview or something like that, like just a snippet, something for people to, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out because I had no power for 18 hours today. It went off around 5 o'clock in the morning and didn't come back on until after 8 o'clock. But I promised I would do coverage of the Democratic National Convention, in part because I promised to. I'm not just going to do, yay, the Donald Trump poop show. You know, I'm not going to do that. That's not critical thinking, and that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about critical thinking and why it's super important. Because, man, today, I almost stopped today. I was almost like, this is not worth the hate. It got so ridiculous today on Twitter that I couldn't tell the Sanders supporters from the alt-right types. There was that much anger. Now, that's part of the reason I'm kind of sweaty and stuff, but most of it is just, we had no air conditioning. But anger, you can't walk in to a discussion of politics angry, because politics gets everybody irritated to an extent, because you can have three very good people talking about something, but they all come from different sort of fundamental core values. It doesn't mean someone is a bad person because they disagree with you politically, but it does get quite frustrating because you can't understand why people believe different things. And frustration and anger are not the same thing. Frustration can be handled. Anger is when you start swearing at a person. And I'm not saying nobody gets angry. People shouldn't get angry. Anger is a legit thing, but you have to realize you're angry and behave accordingly. And a lot of people didn't do that today. And something I didn't expect to be terribly contentious got a lot of people angry at me. And I'm really surprised at this. And I want to talk about it because I think it's an example of a lack of critical thinking skills. The question was, why are people convinced that Bernie Sanders is an anti-establishment candidate when he was part of the system for 30 years? I put this out on Twitter, and 19 people liked it, 5 people retweeted it, all right, fine, but it drew a lot of anger. It drew a lot of outrage, and it drew a lot of false accusations that I was just like, what? This isn't even, the minute you assume someone's intent, you've lost the intellectual argument. That is an emotional assumption. When you start, I was accused of asking a disingenuous question. And I was like, what? I needed a minute. I was actually in a mall getting lunch because I couldn't cook anything and I was afraid to open my refrigerator. Couldn't even make tea. It was a bad day. But I was in a mall and I get this tweet and I'm like, what? I had to look up what tweet I was talking about. And I'm like, what? And then I said, that's an assumption. And then these guys started swearing at me. And I said, you know, if you can't make your argument without swearing, you don't have an argument. And then, and without personal attacks. And then these guys went and dug up a tweet from a year ago where I said some guy was an asshole and I didn't want to talk to him anymore. Yeah, I didn't want to talk to him anymore. That was my point. But they were trying to show, oh, I'm a big hypocrite. And so, I decided to take the fire out because that, to me, somebody's really got their anger in it. I would have said something else, but I'm trying to keep it clean. When they go back and find a tweet from a year ago, out of context, the context I called the guy an asshole was he was insulting my marriage. And anybody knows anything about me, insult my marriage, it's on. Right? Like, they're non-starter. Insult my marriage, it's on. I told the guy multiple times to stop doing it. He wouldn't. So I said he went after my marriage. So yeah, I called him an asshole, and they're like, "Oh, it's okay when they deserve it." Like this was some big gotcha. And at this point, I determined that these people were just too angry to consider having a conversation. Not bad people, just very angry. And so I tweeted the thing, the tweet that had them all, "Oh, gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Ah, oh, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad." And I'm sure somebody's going to take a clip of that to make me look stupid, but they, I said, apparently, I forget exactly what I said, and I'm afraid to move it because I don't want to mess up the webcam on OBS. It's a little fragile, but I basically retweeted the tweet and said, "This is apparently very damning, so I'm just, saving this guy's friends some work. Here it is." And I actually had somebody say, "Talk shit, get hit, bitch." Whoa! And of course, this is a guy with cuck in his username, so we can consider the source there. But still, way over the line, even for the alt-right. Way over the line. If you're supposed to be convincing people that you're not hateful people, you're just, a new political revolution. We're hearing this from both sides, you notice. Don't go there. And when I said, "What the?" I was told it was just a meme. And so I looked it up. I went on Urban Dictionary, and it's basically exactly what I thought it was. You mouthed off, so we're going to beat the shit out of you. That's what it means. That's what it means. And I was like, wow, it's been a while since I was actively threatened on Twitter. Now, it's not a credible threat. I'm not pro-victiming here. It's just someone was really angry. You can't have a conversation when you're angry. And it was that was this afternoon. It was around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it has just been perpetual outraged Sanders supporters or outraged alt-right types just putting words in my mouth and addressing meanings, adding meanings to things that I said that I didn't mean, and assuming intentions I didn't have. None of this is critical thinking. It's all emotional responses. And I want to talk about critical thinking briefly. We can talk about critical thinking for an hour. You can do a whole lecture on critical thinking. But critical thinking is a logical approach to problems. And I get into a lot of situations like this on Twitter because I am a critical thinker. Now, people are like, "Oh, backpatch, sure, virtue signaling." No. No. I don't think it's a virtue. It's a necessity of what I do. The problem with years and years and years of honing yourself that way, because I was a television researcher as well. You got to remember, my job responsibility was to be right because I was giving somebody else material, and if they were wrong, I'd get in a lot of trouble because it didn't make me look stupid, it made them look stupid. And so this is important. That role is important about some of the other things I'm going to talk about because of just some realities of the working world. And I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent here. Back to critical thinking. The thing about critical thinking is a lot of people talk about it. Far fewer people do it. And because it's hard, it means you have to critically look at some people you really like. And for me, Bernie Sanders was one of those people. Ivanka Trump is another one of those people. I very much like them both. Notice I said Ivanka and not Donald. With Bernie Sanders, it's really easy to get swept up in his talk of revolution and the brothers and sisters thing and all that stuff. That brothers and sisters talking point was part of the thing that actually woke me up a little bit, and I went, wait a second, because it's just invoking, he says he's a Democrat. democratic socialist, but those talking points are socialist without the democratic. And I'm a little bit more sensitive, or probably a lot more sensitive to that than most people, because there's a lot of Marxism and feminism. And part of my own work has been, okay, can we separate the two? Can we make things about the advancement of women that doesn't have a clear political bias in terms of, structural systems? Because I don't believe you have to tear down capitalism to get equality for women. In fact, I think that, I don't like using minorities because non-white people aren't minorities anymore. And I don't like saying the LGBTQ community because it really isn't one. You go on Twitter, you see gay people and trans people fighting with each other all the time, but you know what I mean, right? The so-called less privileged people. I don't even like using that term because it makes people freak out, but you know what I mean. I think capitalism and, an interview subject, Nelson Blake II, said this eloquently on a Party Chatter interview I did, but capitalism is the best system for, less fortunate people to overcome the imbalance in their society. Because if you make something people like, people will buy it. They may still be bigoted, but they like what you make. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of rednecks have a George Foreman grill. You know what I mean? In fact, I know it. I've seen it. But... And that's the beautiful thing about capitalism is, no, it's not fair. It's not fair. The system is rigged. Duh. The system has been rigged since the founding of Western society. The system has been rigged in favor of the rich and favor of, I'm not going to say it because it's going to be buzzwords, but we have come from a point where the system was very rigged and work to make the system increasingly less rigged for certain groups of people. Things like, eradicating slavery. Things like giving women the right to vote. Things like marriage equality. These are all de-rigging the system. Because yes, the system is rigged. We still don't have adoption protections for gay people. We still don't have proper social frameworks for transgendered people to live in the gender that they feel most normal being. Yes, the system is rigged against these people. It's rigged against people like me who didn't have the option of fancy pants private schools. And guess what? It was really frustrating to me when I got into the world of entertainment. And a lot of the sort of children of some Canadian celebrities were around my age, a little bit younger, but I tried to hang out with them, and they all went to these elite schools and got into the school of their choice, no problem, because they went to the right schools, and they could coast forward on a B+ average and get into any school they wanted because it was the right school. That is a rigged system, and that's here in Canada. Like, we still struggle with that here. I know people who are very smart people who are working very, very hard with crushing student debt. That is a rigged system. Absolutely. But the system is rigged is not the tagline for the party fighting that. It seems like both parties are fighting over who's got claim to the system is rigged. But Donald Trump popularized it with the side of... Actually, no. Trump claimed to popularize it, didn't he? With the side of Bernie Sanders. And we get into critical thinking. I just corrected myself because I actually care about that fact. I'm not collecting information to reinforce my preconceived idea. I'm collecting information to form my opinions. And let me tell you guys, everybody keeps saying I'm pro this, I'm pro that. One person told me that I just didn't want to accept that Hillary Clinton wasn't Dick Cheney in a pantsuit. Okay, let me tell you what I do think about this election, this U.S. election. I don't know what to think about this U.S. election. I think that this election is one of the most fact-free, polluted in the press exercises I have seen in a really long time. The media is creating narratives for ratings and not informing people. And this is going to affect the outcome, even before Russia started co-opting WikiLeaks to muck with the election. This is a problem because we have three people right now, because Bernie Sanders is still a factor, even though he's not the nominee. We still have one more day. By the time you watch this, who knows? Hillary Clinton could have gotten arrested by this point. Assange has promised. He promised there was going to be some bombshell today that apparently never came. Ooh, Julian Assange misled. Well, there are some people who aren't going to be very happy about that. But Bernie Sanders is still a factor. Very much. So I'm going to include him in this. We have three people with very long public track records: Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders. Donald Trump is known through alleged business dealings, but let's face it, even though his character is a businessman, he's best known through the media. It wasn't, he's not like an Elon Musk who is just made this really crazy disruptive tech with like Tesla and stuff like that, and so people know him that way. He's best known for a book quite a while ago called The Art of the Deal that became this big bestseller. He's a professional celebrity. He was talking himself up like a big macher, millionaire, before he built his first building. He peddles in celebrity. And there's a different bar for that, but he still has a record that can be examined. Now, Hillary Clinton, do I really need to go through this? Let's save time and say no. We all know the sordid brief history of Hillary Clinton, defined by her mistakes. And then we have Bernie Sanders, who I'm fortunate enough to know people in Vermont, so I got a slightly different perspective from this. But Sanders has a significant track record. He has made his own share of mistakes. He has had his own share of victories as well. He was a highly competent municipal politician. The things he did with the city of Burlington revitalization you can't take that away from him. That is fantastic. What he did was great. But then you have a long time in the U.S. Senate where he has a voting record that for, some things he broke ranks with the Democrats. Although, if you look at his voting record, he voted with the Democrats very often. He usually voted alongside the Democrats, but he was an independent because he wanted to vote for certain things, like he wanted to vote against the Democratic Party on guns, things like that. So, for all these people, he's the true progressive, not on every point. And people get very upset when you bring this up, but it's just there, guys. Like, don't yell at me because of Bernie Sanders' voting record. You like what he says. That's great. I like a lot of the things he says. But he's a career politician. Now, the difference is Hillary Clinton has been a much more famous career politician. She's been much more high profile than Bernie Sanders has. Part of that is because Bernie wouldn't play the game. It's a two-party system, like it or not. Sorry for people who don't like it. I'm in Canada. I think it's crazy. Okay? I think the two-party electoral college system does not serve the people. I prefer our system where the head of the party that gets the most votes becomes prime minister. And we have, a lot of people don't like our appointed Senate, but our set of checks and balances is we have the elected group and then the appointed group. And the whole purpose of an appointed Senate is they don't have to run for re-election, so they can be, the upper chamber of sober second thought is what they call them. And that's the whole idea. Different approach to the problem. Not better or worse, just different approach to the problem. But the thing we have up here that the U.S. system doesn't have is something called minority parliaments. If a party fails to get a majority of seats, they don't get a 4-year mandate. You guys don't have that down there. So I'm looking at the U.S. election from a very different lens. Now, what I'm also looking at is a situation where there's one person with a well-known career in politics where the media has gone out of their way to focus and blame her for a lot of things she did do wrong, and then blame her for a lot of things that weren't actually her decision. And this is where critical thinking comes in. People don't like to hear that. But it's just the facts. If you actually look at the structure of government and who has the power, a great many of those conspiracy theories fall apart. They just do. I'm not saying this out of any love for Hillary Clinton. The same way I am hesitant, I will undeniably say that Donald Trump has made racist statements. I don't think we should focus on whether or not Donald Trump is actually a racist. Can't prove it. Same thing, right? Now, on the other hand, I can say Donald Trump is excellent with a populist message. I understand why he is doing as well as he is. A lot of people are like, I can't believe he's doing so well. Well, there's a lot of factors for that. But it doesn't benefit anybody to get enraged because somebody has a different viewpoint. And a lot of people have been getting really worked up at me, calling me effing naive and all this stuff over this email scandal. And this is the last, not the DNC leaks email scandal, although people got mad at me for that too. Because, I pointed out that Julian Assange was getting up on his high horse and talking about Hillary Clinton definitely being indicted when he himself, hid out in the Ecuador embassy because he didn't want to face his own charges. Now he claims they were a witch hunt. Well, Hillary Clinton claims her thing is a witch hunt too. So it's not a question of whether you believe Julian Assange actually raped prostitutes. It's not a question of whether you believe Hillary Clinton did something illegal. The point is, Julian Assange is do as I say, not as I do on this point. If you believe in facing justice, you yourself face justice, even when you don't feel it's just. That's my line for consistency. You don't have to agree with me, but that is not a naive viewpoint. And this is what happens with critical thinking, and this is why people get all these weird ideas about me. Because, look, I don't have a preconceived opinion I'm trying to defend. I'm trying to form an opinion here, guys, and you're not helping. You're not helping by swearing at me and calling me names and, in the weird way out cases, threats. You're not helping persuade me. You're making me think that this whole feel the burn and this make America great again, it's all just excuses to hate on the other. This is, and it's not a fully formed opinion, I admit, but this is where I'm at right now, based on what I've seen. Now, I'm not saying that's true for everybody. I think that people like Sarah Silverman, who fought the good fight, and now are like, okay, we have to pick the best choice of what available. We tried, we lost, moving on. I'm not talking about that, right? I'm talking about the people who attack and swear at people on the internet over a political candidate who does not love you. So let me touch on the last thing. The Hillary Clinton private server email scandal. You can think that was wrong all you want. I think it was stupid. Now, I have a much more nuanced opinion of how stupid it was, based on a few things. One of which, they say, oh, well, her server might have been hacked. We know the State Department was hacked. So this is less a game of keeping the information safe and more keeping the information where it's not your fault that the information isn't safe. That's what the argument is here, because it could be wrong. Somebody could have got in and we'll get a data dump during the election. I'm not ruling that out because we can't. Facts are facts. We just know that the State Department was hacked multiple times because it's this big, shining, gleaming target, and hackers are using spear phishing to get in. And when you're targeting people and not computers, it doesn't matter how good your security algorithm is. People are going to get in. The only way you can stop these sort of data dumps is to archive everything off the main computer every month so they can't get a year. And if they're lurking in the system for a year, that doesn't even help. So the weak point is people. And the reality is, I'm not defending this, I'm just pointing out, when you only have one person using a server, it's harder to spearfish because you have to spearfish that one person, not one of 20 people, because you only need one to get access, right? Your rate goes down. And that has nothing to do with computers or IT security or anything like that. It's just law of averages. But the final thing people keep saying, And this is where I shut the conversation down, and it's not because I'm defending Hillary Clinton, it's just because it's not fact. And I won't say it's not true because some people believe it's true, but there are no facts to support the belief. People keep saying Hillary Clinton committed a felony. Hillary Clinton committed a crime. The FBI says no. And you can argue that decision all you want. The FBI said no. Period. It was not an indictable offense. It did not meet the burden as far as they were concerned. And James Comey is a guy, I looked this guy up because I formulated my opinion based on this guy's reputation and who he is. And he went after his own party. So I think the bias in Comey's case and the thing that made this all blow up is instead of just saying no charges, he decided to make that statement that got everybody into a tizzy because he did yeah but no. In his statement, he was too nuanced by half, and it gave people something to chew on for much longer than it should have. He's not a politician, though. I think his intentions were good in trying to be transparent. I just think the way he went about it, wasn't the best because it caused more issues than it solved. But now I'm going to tell you why this is so important to me, because those of you who watch this channel for a while may know that I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood. And innocent until proven guilty, the concept of innocent until proven guilty is not as important for the rich, for the establishment types, as it is for poor people, most notably poor Black and Latino men. And even some white men in some ways. I mean, incarceration rates for men are more likely to get convicted, and they receive higher, longer prison sentences for convictions than women do. Because people subscribe to this guilty of something thing and they throw the book at people. Now, I saw some good people make a few mistakes and it ruined the rest of their life. They ended up with a criminal record for small drug charges. And the minute you have that record, background checks are not terribly nuanced. These companies do a background check and you get a positive result and that's it. They don't hire you. So people get caught in this convict trap. And even a charge, even being charged with something can affect some people. I mean, there's a guy up here who got denied. He's a journalist. He got denied a police ride along he needed to do for his job because he was carded. He wasn't even charged with a crime. He wasn't suspected of anything. He was just known to police because of our horrible carding policy in this city that they determined was horrible. So innocent until proven guilty is very important. And just like free speech, it's easy to defend free speech when someone is doing something you can defend. When someone does something revolting, that's when it's important to be consistent about a belief in free speech. It's the same thing about innocent until proven guilty and accusing people of crimes. It's not important to do when it's easy. It's important to do when it's hard. And so I defend Hillary Clinton against charges she broke the law for people who are not as privileged, who I want to have a fair chance. Because if you can accuse Hillary Clinton of being guilty of something, she has lawyers who can fight it. A guy like, what's the guy who Making a Murderer was based on him? He can't fight it the same way. He's a dumb redneck. And so he's basically sitting in jail for being a dumb redneck who was in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong family. That's why I'm so sticky on, no, you say she committed a felony, we do not proceed. Fundamentally wrong. You can say what she did was wrong. You can say what she did was stupid. You can say what she did was negligent. All those are fact. But her committing a felony is not fact. And it's a bigger issue than just Hillary Clinton. It affects real people who can't fight for themselves, who don't have top-notch lawyers, and who can't fight back. And their lives are ruined forever because law and order. Well, that's not just. That's not just. So that's where I'm at. So please, guys, for the rest of this convention, please use your critical thinking skills and take a breath before you attack someone online, because I'm not going away. You're not going to shout me down, but this can be more pleasant than it's been.